On this Sunday night, Gaza's ceasefire in danger. Israel bombards the Palestinian enclave, accusing Hamas of violating the truce. Violence and disputes pushing the agreement to the brink.
Israel will spare no effort until all of our fallen hostages are home.
Brazen heist at the Louvre. How did thieves break in and steal jewelry from the world's largest museum in broad daylight? Plus, a sacred site and the ceremony marking its return to a First Nation in BC. And breaking it in.
We usually get like about $60 to $80 per yard.
How these kids are battling boredom with business during Alberta's teachers' strike.
Global National, reporting tonight, Ann Gaviola.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. It has been a week since U.S. President Donald Trump jetted to the Middle East to celebrate the American-led ceasefire in Gaza. There are now signs that the fragile truce between Israel and Hamas is under threat of crumbling. Today, Israel launched a new series of strikes into Gaza, blaming Hamas for violating the truce first by attacking Israeli forces still stationed there. Officials in the enclave say more than 30 Palestinians were killed by the attacks. Now, that comes on top of Israel halting the transfer of much-needed aid into Gaza. Its military now says it's going back to upholding the ceasefire agreement. But as Mackenize Gray reports in our top story tonight, there are no guarantees.
It seemed like calling it a ceasefire would become increasingly difficult. The Israeli Defense Forces releasing footage of multiple strikes on targets inside Gaza.
The Prime Minister has made it abundantly clear there will be no compromise and Israel will spare no effort until all of our fallen hostages are home. There are 16 more hostages that need to be returned.
Israel launched dozens of attacks after 2 IDF soldiers were killed inside of the Israeli-controlled city of Rafah after an alleged attack from Hamas militants. Hamas, who has accused Israel of multiple ceasefire violations, denied involvement, saying they hadn't had any communication with any remaining units in Rafah in months. At least 20 were killed in the strikes, according to Gaza health officials, including at this seaside coffee shop. But despite the biggest challenge to the ceasefire yet, both Israel and Hamas reiterated they would follow the ceasefire going forward, just hours after the attacks. Israel had closed the border into Gaza in advance of the strikes until they said further notice. But crossing to get desperately needed aid into Gaza will resume on Monday, a core component of the ceasefire. Qatar, Turkey, Egypt, and U.S. President Donald Trump had helped broker the ceasefire.
This took 3,000 years to get to this point. Can you believe it? And it's going to hold up, too. It's going to hold up.
But just 9 days later, the perils of any deal in the Middle East was on full display. The first stage of the ceasefire includes the return of 20 living Israeli hostages for more than 19,000 Palestinian prisoners and detainees. The search also continues to find some of the remains of the deceased hostages. Hamas has returned 12 Israelis killed in Gaza. 16 others still need to be found. These strikes are similar to the early days of the Hezbollah ceasefire in late 2024, where both sides accused each other of violations after less than a weekend. In that case, the ceasefire has largely held. But the challenges in Gaza are considerably more complex, like determining who will govern Gaza in the future and if Hamas will actually demilitarize as they promised.
Mackenize Gray in Ottawa, thank you. Donald Trump has called Colombia's president an illegal drug leader and is vowing to cut off funding to the South American nation. In a social media post in which Trump spells Colombia incorrectly multiple times, he says President Gustavo Petro is strongly encouraging the massive production of drugs. Petro responded with posts of his own, saying Trump is being misled by his inner circle and that Trump does not understand the concept of humanity. On Saturday, Trump posted video of U.S. strikes on what he claimed was a drug-running submarine. 2 people were killed in that strike, and the 2 survivors are being repatriated to Ecuador and Colombia. The Colombian president claims another U.S. attack on a boat on Thursday killed a Colombian fisherman with no ties to the drug trade. The American president's response on social media to the No Kings rallies across the U.S. and in other countries, including Canada, was swift and AI-generated. Trump posted fake video of himself wearing a crown and flying a fighter jet to dump brown sludge over crowds of protesters. This comes after millions marched against Trump this weekend. denouncing what they view as authoritarian rule and a corrupt presidency.
You know, they're referring to me as a king. I'm not a king.
Right. That was Trump's reaction to the No Kings protests in an interview recorded Thursday with Fox News ahead of the massive rallies, and it aired today. In Paris, police are on the hunt for thieves who stole jewelry at the Louvre this morning. It happened while the world-famous museum was open to tourists, which is raising questions about the facility's security. Candice Cole looks at how the incredible heist unfolded and what was stolen.
Like something out of a movie. Jewelry thieves, in a scheme that only took 4 minutes to pull off, stole millions of dollars worth of precious jewels from the Louvre, just 250 meters from the Mona Lisa, as tourists unwittingly made their way through the most visited museum in the world. According to the French government, the thieves piled into a basket lift, forced their way into an upstairs window in the Apollo Gallery, which houses the French crown jewels, and smashed display cases. They escaped on motorcycles with handfuls of Napoleon-era jewels as tourists were evacuated from the building.
When we arrived here, we saw that everything was closed down. I was wondering what was going on.
The burglary forced the Louvre to shut down for the rest of the day as investigators searched for clues about the suspects.
I knew something was up because of the way they swept the whole museum.
This is our last day of a long trip, and this is the most exciting part today.
According to a Paris prosecutor, the culprits got away with 8 pieces in total, including part of a sapphire jewelry set linked to French queens Marie Amélie and Hortense, and Empress Eugenie's corsage bow brooch. Empress Eugenie's crown, said to contain some 1,300 diamonds, was recovered broken at the scene. They also left behind the world-famous Regent diamond, weighing over 140 carats, worth over $60 million. In a post on X, French President Emmanuel Macron called it an attack on French heritage. The theft comes as the Louvre continues to deal with issues around overcrowding and understaffing. This Louvre employee says security personnel have been alerting the museum's management for months about flaws and problems, fearing a break-in of this kind would happen. And right before planned security upgrades with new generation cameras, perimeter detection, and a security control room, according to France's interior minister. Experts say it's unlikely the jewels will be recovered, but nearly impossible to sell given their notoriety. Candice Cole, Global News, Washington.
After nearly 2 decades of negotiations, a sacred Indigenous site in BC has officially been returned to Sumas First Nation. The Lightning Rock site was private property before the provincial government purchased it in order to give it back to the First Nation. Neetu Garcha was at the ceremony, which marked a major step in recognizing Indigenous land rights.
A historic transfer is being recognized at Sumas First Nation near Abbotsford, BC. This occasion marks the return of the site, known as Lightning Rock, to Indigenous control after decades of negotiation and resistance.
It's surreal. It's really significant. It's a big step. It's a relief.
A fight led by Chief Dalton Silver, who recalls stepping in front of heavy equipment when the site was in the path of the Trans Mountain pipeline expansion.
I couldn't get a hold of other council members, so I just went and stood in front of the bulldozer and said, hold it, you have to stop. And of course, they phoned the police on me.
He says the site is not only spiritually significant, it's also sacred burial ground, believed to hold the remains of hundreds of Stolo ancestors who died during smallpox epidemics.
And the truth of our connection to these places has to be acknowledged.
The land, long recognized by the community as a registered archaeological site, was under private ownership until 2023, when the BC government purchased it to protect its cultural significance.
Lots of different things lining up with the right people in the right place at the right time.
The agreement to return the land involved multiple parties, including former BC House Speaker Darryl Plecas, who advocated with government officials.
But I certainly thought to myself, come hell or high water, I'm going to help make this happen.
Why?
You know, because it was such the right thing to do.
And I think that's extraordinary, and I think it's unprecedented.
Canada's first Indigenous Appellate Court Justice Harry Laforme was brought in to mediate the final agreement, the outcome of which, he says, sets a national example.
This land, you didn't have to, Was no lawsuit. There wasn't anything going on. It was just BC government said they wanted to return this cultural site to back to Sumas.
I just think that this is a big step as far as reconciling differences we have with the government.
He says the return of Lightning Rock is complete, marking a new chapter in reconciliation and land stewardship. Neetu Garcha, Global News, Simath Territory.
Voters in Alberta are set to choose new municipal governments Monday in what's been dubbed a meh election because voter engagement appears to be so low. Turnout to advanced polls was down by more than 30% in both Calgary and Edmonton over the last election cycle. As Heather Urex-West explains, that is despite mayoral races in both cities that are expected to be close calls.
Among all the colorful signs of the changing seasons in Alberta are also signs of political change. Voters across the province will elect new municipal governments this week, though in this election, it's feared voter turnout will be low.
You've got the teacher strike, you've got various aspects with the provincial government, you've got Canada-US trade, you've got the Carney government, you've got the war in the Middle East. Are people even paying attention to municipal politics? I don't think they are.
Advanced voting numbers were down by about a third in both Calgary and Edmonton, despite both cities seeing a competitive mayoral race. Incumbent Calgary Mayor Jody Gondik facing a five-way fight.
Even though she's an incumbent with baggage, it doesn't look like anyone else is coming out as a clear alternative.
With Edmonton's one-term mayor Amarjeet Sohi not on the ballot this time around, two former councillors, Andrew Knack and Tim Cartmell, have emerged as frontrunners, according to recent polls, with Cartmell running under the banner of Better Edmonton, one of several municipal political parties brand new to both Calgary and Edmonton for this election, part of a pilot project introduced last year by the Danielle Smith government.
The province is hoping, by introducing parties only in Calgary and Edmonton, they're hoping to have an impact on sort of the ideological leaning of the municipalities in question.
In the past, Calgary and Edmonton have elected mayors and councils that lean more progressive. The results of this election will see if the introduction of party politics shift results to the right.
Another big change to this year's election will come after the ballots are cast. Last year, the province passed legislation banning the use of electronic vote counters, meaning many Albertans won't know the results of this election until much later in the week. Heather Urex-West, Global News, Calgary.
And everything is on the line in tonight's do-or-die game between the Toronto Blue Jays and the Seattle Mariners. Coming up, can Canada's team recover from Friday's crushing loss? Millions of baseball fans across the country are on edge. The Toronto Blue Jays are playing a do-or-die Game 6 against the Seattle Mariners tonight with a rookie pitcher on the mound. Global's Nicole DiDonato has been speaking with fans, gauging their confidence. Nicole?
And there is a nervous energy here at the Rogers Centre with the Jays season on the line. The boys in blue must do something they haven't yet done in the American League Championship Series, which is win a game at home. Excitement and nerves from fans as the Toronto Blue Jays face possible elimination for the first time this postseason.
So let's do it. Let's just win 2 in a row, get back to the World Series.
Praying that they win. That's, I want to be here. I want to be here for the moment.
After losing games 1 and 2 of the American League Championship Series at home, the Jays won 2 straight in Seattle, but fell just short of taking the series lead after giving up Game 5 on Friday. That means the Jays must win tonight or it's game over.
I think this team all year has been able to bounce back and able to really play together as a team.
Rookie Trey Savage starts on the mound for the Jays. He had a stellar postseason debut during the ALDS against the New York Yankees, but Seattle has given him a harder time. Savage gave up 5 runs over 4 innings as Toronto fell 10-3 to the Mariners in Game 2, but he says he's ready.
All the work all season has led up to this moment, not only for me, but for the team that has been doing it since March.
Meanwhile, the Mariners have their sights set on advancing to the World Series for the first time in franchise history.
Well, I think both teams would really like to win this one. Hopefully Seattle will take it down. We got Logan Gilbert pitching.
I feel good.
But one analyst we spoke to says being back in front of a home crowd will give the Jays an edge.
Going to be aggressive, and it's going to be a hostile environment for the Seattle Mariners, especially after George Springer took that fastball in the knee and the Mariners fans celebrated it. So I don't think that it's going to be a very fun place to play for this Seattle team.
If the Jays force a Game 7, both teams will be right back here at the Rogers Centre tomorrow night. Ann.
Nicole DiDonato in Toronto, thank you. Pakistan and Afghanistan have agreed to an immediate ceasefire after days of violent border clashes left dozens of people dead. The two sides met in Doha over the weekend for talks mediated by Qatar and Turkey. They agreed to pause fighting and continue dialogue for long-lasting peace. Each side had blamed the other for the escalation linked to militant attacks in Pakistan that have surged since 2021 when the Taliban seized control of Afghanistan. The Australian government is defending its multi-billion-dollar plan to deport hundreds of migrants to the tiny Pacific nation of Nauru.
Because of our international responsibilities, we've had a view that we don't send them back to a place where we think there's a chance of them being persecuted. But that doesn't mean that Australia is the only country they can be in, and Nauru's been willing to help us with this.
That is Australia Home Affairs Minister speaking to the country's public broadcaster on the agreement made with Nauru last month to resettle those who've been denied refugee status. But the plan has sparked criticism that Australia is dumping refugees on one of the world's smallest states and that it could open the door to thousands more deportations. Human Rights Watch has also reported that previous deportees to Nauru have suffered abuse, with some also dying from medical neglect and suicide. Ahead, drought conditions in Atlantic Canada are taking a toll on maple producers, and they're worried about what's in store for 2026. It's been an abnormally dry summer and fall for Atlantic Canada, with farmers around the region feeling the impact of drought conditions. Now, maple syrup producers are anxiously waiting to see what winter brings and expecting a difficult spring to come. Anna Mandan reports.
Little Mackenize Maples has all sorts of products, from the usual maple syrup to more unique goods like maple mustard, maple barbecue sauce, and maple sweetened salsa. It's a labor of love for owners Paul and Wendy Reynolds.
We started out 17 years ago with 75 taps, and now we're at 1,200 taps, and our products have been tested around the world.
But next spring may be a not-so-sweet one. This summer and fall, the whole Atlantic region has been hit by a drought, and that could impact production.
What we saw in 2020 when we had a drought very similar to this was that the following season, the maples did not produce very high sugar content.
In fact, it was half the usual, meaning double the work to boil off the water.
So it presents many more challenges to produce the product, and it's much more expensive.
Even then, he says some winter rain helped the sap flow. If this winter and spring are dry, it'll mean less sap with potentially less sugar.
I'm quite concerned on the amount of sap in sugar content that we'll have.
He's not alone. A regional director of New Brunswick's Maple Syrup Association says trees around the region are stressed, and the lack of water could cause permanent damage to weaker trees.
If this continues, we may want to start being a little more conscientious of how we're treating our maple trees. We don't want to overtap them or stress them any further than we do.
While a Cornell researcher in New York says the drought, both there and in eastern Canada, may have impacts for years to come.
I mean, if the trees aren't producing as much sugar, that's certainly going to impact their overall growth.
As Reynolds looks to the future and a potentially sticky situation. Anna Mandan, Global News, Mackenize, New Brunswick.
Next, how some entrepreneurial kids are saying no to screen time and boredom during the Alberta teachers' strike. With a teacher strike in Alberta entering a third week, boredom is starting to sink in for some students. But while many are stuck at home, one group of enterprising youngsters in Edmonton has found a way to stay active and make a little money at the same time. Jacqueline Kusi has their story.
2 days into the teacher strike, grade 4 student Mark Sekienko couldn't stand sitting at home bored. So instead,
I just go like this. Hold the bag.
Leaf by leaf, Mark, along with his younger sister Zlata, have been offering neighbors cheap yard work.
These lawns, these houses, I just asked like $1 because it's small.
It didn't take long for their neighbors Avery and Annalise Bulaya to join the crew. They say they do online homework in the morning and then join together to rake leaves in the afternoon. For Avery, it's a way to keep a routine.
When there's school, I can stay in kind of the same path, and so I don't have to gear back to the school instead of video games all day and then kind of shuffling myself to school. I can just keep on that path basically.
Now they have a whole operation.
We are wondering if we can rake your lawn for a couple of dollars.
Yeah, sure.
And have expanded to other areas of the west side.
We usually get about $60 to $80 per yard.
Mark says he's hoping he can use his half of the earnings to make a dream come true.
I'm saving up for a ticket to go to Ukraine so I can see my grandma.
He hasn't seen his grandma since he fled the war in Ukraine with his parents 4 years ago. His mom says she's impressed he's gotten this far.
One day it was $5, $10, and day by day more and more.
I already made $400, so I hope I can get $600 more.
These young entrepreneurs say they will keep raking until either the strike ends or they run out of leaves. Jacqueline Kusi, Global News.
And that is Global National for this Sunday night. I'm Ann Gaviola. Tonight's Your Canada showcases Dead Man's Flats, Alberta, Caledon, Ontario, and in Gilbert's Cove, Nova Scotia. Thank you for watching and have a great night.